We've talked a lot about just how good Kentucky's defense should be this upcoming season. But are the Wildcats hiding one of the best shooters in the country on their bench?
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, going to talk about whether or not Kentucky's actually hiding one of the best shooters in the country on their bench, and if it's not him, does Kentucky have somebody else that could take his place? Also on today's episode, some brief recruiting updates, breaking down the latest news surrounding a couple of Kentucky's top prospects. They've reached out to a couple different guys. Of course, they had Kinney on an official visit this past week. And then to wrap up the show, I'm going to talk about Jasper Johnson with Team USA, because while the stats aren't necessarily the most impressive so far, not really gotten the chance to showcase what he's capable of. And I think the shooting is something that we should all be looking forward to. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when their first $5 bet wins. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. I want to remind everyone out there that we are free and available on all platforms. If you're watching on YouTube, would greatly appreciate it if you subscribe to the show. And if you're listening on podcast, I would also appreciate it if you subscribe there as well. If you have any questions about Kentucky basketball, about the Wildcats in general, you can leave them in the comments below and let me know, who do you think is the best shooter on this roster? So Jaland Lowe spoke with the media just a day ago, breaking down all of the different things going on with summer practices. I believe Reese Potter also spoke with the media as well. But Jaland Lowe had a very interesting quote that was floating around on social media that I felt the need to address. He said that Trent Noah, a bench piece for the Kentucky Wildcats a season ago, forced into action whenever other players went down, played pretty well, I might add, while other players were injured. Jaland Lowe says Trent Noah is the best shooter he's ever seen. Now, we did a recent episode talking about Denzel Aberdeen, discussing whether or not Kentucky is as good as that Florida team that just won a national title a season ago, and whether or not they can actually play defense at such a high level that they could make a deep run in the NCAA tournament. I didn't think what Aberdeen had to say was hyperbole. I didn't think he was lying. I thought he was being pretty honest, and there were some obvious comparisons to make between this year's Kentucky team and that Florida team that we broke down on that recent episode of Locked On Kentucky. But man, Trent Noah being the best shooter Jaland Lowe has ever seen is a little bit of a shock. Here's the full quote. Obviously, he says, Trent Noah might be the best shooter I've ever seen. And he said, I've played with a really good shooter in Blake Henson, but he can shoot the living out of the ball. He can really shoot. And he didn't say anything there whenever he said he can shoot the living out of the ball. He just kind of nodded towards the camera, just kind of implying, obviously, what he wanted to say there. But Blake Henson, for those of you that don't know, played at Ole Miss, I think, for a few seasons before he transferred over to Pitt. And in his final season with the Panthers, he, a 6'8", 230-pound power forward, by the way, shot 42% from three on 261 attempts. That was the 2023-2024 season whenever Jaland Lowe was a freshman there in Pittsburgh. Best shooter he's seen up until this point, Blake Henson, 42.1%. Trent Noah might be the best he's ever seen. Does Kentucky quietly here have the best shooter in the country? Because I would like to imagine if the Wildcats have the best shooter that Lowe has ever seen, considering the competition he has played against and the players that he has been able to be surrounded by during his time at Pittsburgh, I'd like to imagine that Noah, if he is the best he's ever seen, is going to be one of the best in the country at the very least, if not the top. Now, it is interesting to note just kind of the physical similarities between Henson and Noah. Both are taller, rangier forwards that can step out, and I think were both, I think, known for their three-point shooting. That was kind of their specialty. It wasn't anything, it wasn't the most diverse, I think, offensive skill set that either of these players could provide outside of that. I think they were both known for knocking down shots from beyond the arc, and that was not necessarily the end-all or be-all, end-all. It was just kind of what they were known for. But is it Noah? Well, considering he only shot, 33% from deep a season ago in limited action, I think most people would immediately go and question whether or not Lowe is being serious here, just based on the percentages and what we saw from Noah. But we also saw something that I don't think was statistically, it wasn't quantified last year. And that was confidence shooting the basketball as a freshman against all levels of competition. One thing that Trent Noah does not lack for is confidence. He came out firing against Tennessee multiple times. Whenever asked to deliver, whenever other players were injured, he wasn't just out there as somebody just getting some cardio in. He was taking shots. He was not shy in transition, and I really, really like that about a rising sophomore who in his second season under Mark Pope could possibly take off. I don't necessarily know, because of the rotation around him, if he has the ability to showcase being the best shooter in the country, if he is truly the best shooter Jaland Lowe has ever seen. But I think efficiency-wise, Noah is going to have the opportunity, and I would expect him to take a leap efficiently. In efficiency. I think he should find a way to climb up from that 33% mark up into the 36, 37, 38% range as a backup small forward, maybe power forward in a small ball lineup. So if it's not Trent Noah that's going to display best shooter in the SEC, best shooter in the country type capabilities, who else would it be on this roster? Well, I have three guys here that it could possibly be. And before we break those guys down, real quick, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. Summer is rolling along, guys. The NBA playoffs are over, but summer sports here like baseball are in full swing. And whether you're about it under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, of course, so why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburn at the beach. You can lock in or lock on to FanDuel while everybody else is out there just kind of living in their folly. You, however, are studying the blade, maybe laying something down on the Atlanta Braves like I like to do from time to time because I am a diehard Braves fan. Maybe you are a diehard Reds fan, as so many of you are, at least that are listening to the show that I've heard. Maybe you want to go lay something down on some baseball. Maybe you want to take a look at some soccer odds with some really interesting games coming up. I think the U.S. is in a pretty interesting spot right now. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in your bonus bets if your first bet wins. Again, new customers can bet just $5, get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. You can open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, continuing along here on the Monday edition of Locked On Kentucky. Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. Really appreciate you guys listening to the podcast today. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast feed, I would greatly appreciate it if you did so. Let me know who you think the best shooter in the country is this year. And if it's not a Kentucky Wildcat, who is it? Who's the best shooter on Kentucky, period? I've got three different guys here that could possibly end up being the best shooter in the nation. Now, obviously, we could go through some of the top portal prospects, some of the mid-majors. We could go through who we think are contenders outside of UK to possibly, at least by the numbers, be the guy that knocks it down from beyond the arc at the highest clip. I'm going to give you three cats, though, that I think could make the case. And we'll start here with a guy that I think is going a little underrated this offseason in Collin Chandler. Collin Chandler last season as a freshman who had just come off a 2-year mission, knocking the rust off, shot 42.1% from beyond the arc versus top 50 Ken Palm opponents. I want to reiterate, as a freshman who had not played basketball in 2 years, was shooting 42.1% from three against the best competition Kentucky's schedule could offer. With the athleticism he showcased in high school, with the ups and the ability to shoot from three-point range and the ball handling and just the explosiveness offensively, my expectation is for Collin Chandler to take a step in year two. How big of a step? Is it a leap? Is it a jump? I don't know, but I expect him to get better. And honestly, I don't necessarily know if he's going to shoot 47, 48, 49% from three, like Kobe Bryant did a season ago. But if given the volume, I think Collin Chandler could be a 40+% three-point shooter on this team, and he could be one of the best in the SEC. He could be the best on this squad, just because of how desperately I think Kentucky needs efficient shooting at those guard spots that they don't necessarily have Or maybe they do. We just haven't seen it yet. But Chandler, I think, would be a great guy to point to and saying, okay, well, if it's not Trent Noah, best shooter Jaland Lowe's ever seen, maybe Collin Chandler can showcase some ability to spray it. Pause. Kam Williams shot 39.7% from three as a freshman at Tulane. A 6'8" freshman at the University of Tulane, shooting almost 40% from deep. It's a little bit of a funky shot, but think about what he's walking into here. Mark Pope's system, likes to shoot threes, finds creative ways to get guys open from three. Kam Williams, I think, will be the recipient of a lot of solid catch and shoot opportunities this year. And man, if he's shooting 40% from deep as a freshman, sky's the limit, I think, for him during his time at Kentucky. But next year, I think he has a legitimate case to make as to possibly being the best three-point shooter on this roster. Again, like I mentioned earlier, Kentucky needs efficient guard shooting. I don't know if they're going to get that from Jaland Lowe. I think they'll get above average to average shooting from Otega-Owe in terms of just shooting, a raw shooting efficiency, I should say. When you look at a guy like Denzel Aberdeen, I think you do question whether or not like you're going to get high percentage numbers from him. I think you're going to get numbers. I just don't know if they're going to be anything that blow you away in terms of like, oh, he's night in and night out somebody that's going to be filling it up statistically, where he's knocking down 55, 56, 57% of his shots, give or take. I just don't think that's going to be him. And then you get to the final guy here. Jasper Johnson is an insane shooter. In fact, whenever he did his recent little interview with Jason Crow Jr., when he was asked about what he's bringing to the table this year at Kentucky, he said he thinks he's a great three-point shooter. He thinks that's what he's bringing first and foremost, is the ability to shoot the basketball. Now, obviously, he's got to add to other parts of his game, he noted, but that's kind of what he is here to do, is create shots for himself, shots for others, and knock things down from three, man. Chandler and Williams, I think, have already shown at the collegiate level that they can be really good three-point shooters against good competition. Jasper's going to have to go out there and show it. You have some concerns about all these guys. I think individually, I think they've got specific things that you could question. But with Jasper, I think it's physicality, man. This was the exact same thing that made some people question Rob Dillingham as a prospect at Kentucky. And what he did during the offseason that impressed so many people was that he got in the gym, he got in the weight room, and he got his weight up. He got stronger so that he could finish through contact, so that he could bear the SEC slate and the physicality that it presented to him. He could actually be a consistent jump shooter off of physical contests, which goodness knows he was off of isolation. Jasper's going to have to do the same. He's going to have to put on a little bit of weight if he wants to be somebody that can create off the dribble for himself. He's going to be, if he's from three, I should say, if he wants to be somebody that can finish through contact, if he wants to be able to sustain a consistent effort and level of play throughout SEC competition, he's going to have to become stronger. But he showcased such an incredible ability to shoot through high school that while we don't have great stats to pull from here, I think an argument could be made that it's a 5-star top 25 prospect from the state of Kentucky that's coming to play at the University of. He's probably going to get his chance to showcase what he's got, is my opinion. The fact that we're not talking about this kid as like a surefire starter is crazy. I mean, think about that. We're at a point right now with Mark Pope in year 2 where a 5-star freshman from the state of Kentucky is like I don't think he's going to start. We did an episode on this recently. Like, should he start? Will he start? I don't think he's going to begin the year. But you have to keep in the back of your mind that ability to shoot the three could propel him into the starting lineup and could propel him to even bigger heights, possibly either at Kentucky or in the NBA. So those are the three guys outside of Noah that I think could possibly have best shooter in the country qualities. Probably those three guys are going to be, one of those three guys is probably going to be the best shooter on the team the next season. So I'll ask you guys again, who do you think in the comments below Let me know who you think is going to be the best shooter on the team. Who do you think is going to be the best shooter in the country next season? All right, we've got 3 different recruits that I want to kind of give a brief update on. One of them is a 7'2" center that, according to Jacob Polachek, friend of the program over at KSR, Kentucky has reached out to. I believe you pronounce this guy's name, Sharif Malogo. I might be butchering that name horribly. 7'2", 210-pound center. He's the number 60 overall prospect, according to the 24/7 Sports Composite. Number 7 center in the class, number 1 player in the state of Massachusetts in the 2027 class, mind you. So he's, according to the composite, number 60 overall, number 51 overall, according to the raw 24/7 Sports player rating. 7'2" center Sharif Malogo. According to Polachek, he played well during the NEPSAC showcase recently and received offers from Alabama and Georgia following. Kentucky is not offered, to be clear. They have just reached out. Very curious to see where this goes. Another wiry, tall center. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I wanted to get more on this kid because he was going to be the only one I talked about today. I cannot find a single video on YouTube about this kid at all. I can't find anything. If I could, I'd be able to break down his game a little bit. But all I can tell you is that he's a decent 4-star, 7'2" kid, only 210 pounds, that Kentucky's reached out to, and 2 other major SEC programs have already given an offer after he played well during a showcase recently. So that's all I got on Malogo. Caleb Holt. This has been a story that's going around over the last week or so. Caleb Holt, one of the top 5 prospects in the 2026 class, 6'5", 200-pound, just physical, imposing wing. Apparently, Kentucky is pouring a lot of interest into. He has come out and told, I think it was both Cats Illustrated and KSR, that Kentucky's given him a lot of interest. He feels like they're making him a priority, that he's very important to them. We've already talked about this kid on the show. Adam Finkelstein says that he's a physically imposing wing on the perimeter. He's strong. He's athletic. He's got a very high motor. He plays very hard. He's super competitive. Offensively, he's a downhill attacker that could be more consistent jump shooting. He needs to develop more natural guard skills defensively. He is a really, really solid standout because of just how physical he is. He can guard multiple positions. He's athletic enough to fly over people for rebounds. It feels like more of a typical Calipari wing that you've seen in the past, Caleb Holt. But Kentucky's making him a priority right now. You also see different teams like Alabama, Baylor, Ole Miss also in the mix here as well. So we keep an eye on Caleb Holt. Maybe something will come of that. And of course, Talon Kinney, the 5-star prospect, top 14 overall player. Talked about him last week, a 6'1", 185-pound guard that plays a lot bigger than he actually is because he's got an insane wingspan and just an insane handle as well. It's not Rob Dillingham, but it is Rob Dillingham, if you get what I mean. I mean, it's like he's kind of getting buckets in the same way. He just physically looks a lot different doing it. Just a legitimate 3-way scoring threat that can knock it down from beyond the arc, can yam on anybody, can finish in the mid-range as well. Just so polished with the ball in his hands for a 17-year-old, 18-year-old kid. Only shooting 33% from beyond the arc last year in OTE, but I think he can be better than that. Really solid distributor of the ball as well. Defensively, he's very solid. We've already broken this kid down. You can find him just about anywhere on the internet if you want to. Can't show any of his highlights, obviously, here for copyright reasons. But Caleb Holt, Sharif Malogo, and Tay Kinney, 3 guys that I think need to be rising. If you have any boards at home, need to be rising to the top of your boards, just at least to keep an eye on all 3 of those. We'll see how the 2026 and 2027 classes continue to evolve. And then to wrap up the show here, I did want to touch on this for just a second. So Jasper Johnson is playing with the U19 Team USA squad for the FIBA World Cup in Switzerland. He's played a collective 34 minutes and has scored 10 points, shooting 3 of 10 from the floor and 2 of 4 from deep. He has 1 rebound, 3 assists, 3 fouls, 1 turnover, 2 steals, no blocks, and a collective plus-minus of 26. In the first game, He got to play 15 minutes, was 2 of 6 from the floor, had a really smooth step back 3 and 1 3, which I just want to be clear for any of you that saw that highlight, that was not a foul. The kid didn't even touch him. That was a really, really, really bad call from the official to give Jasper the and 1 there. And that game, he also had an assist, a foul, a turnover, a steal, and a plus-minus of 8. He had an efficiency rating of 3. And the second game, he played 19 minutes, was 1 of 4 from the floor, but still 1 of 2 from 3 again. He was 2 of 2 from the foul line, kind of getting hacked a little bit. It was kind of the case throughout the course of the game, if I'm not mistaken, against France, where they just could not stay in front of Team USA. And so they fouled him, put him on the line. Dropped 100-plus points as a result of that, if I'm not mistaken. Jasper also had a rebound, 2 assists, 2 fouls, and 1 steal with a plus-minus of plus 18, which I think was 4th best of the entire squad that day. An efficiency rating of 5. The statistics don't blow you away there, obviously. They're actually not great. Shooting 50% from 3 is good. But, like, overall, those are not, like, whoa, my gosh, numbers. Frankly, you're not getting that from some other big-time performers. Mikal Brown Jr., who's going to Louisville, has kind of been hot and cold. He is just an insane gifted player. I think that stats for the FIBA World Cup and stats for Jasper, stats for Brown, stats for all these different guys, they don't really matter. They don't really matter. Especially for Jasper, who's not getting the chance to show what he is scoring the ball. Give it time. That's all I wanted to come on here and say. Just give it time. Let him come back to practice and see what he's capable of. I don't expect him to struggle as much not getting the ball to go in the hole. I also think he's just going to have more chances during practices and scrimmages and stuff. I think Jasper's fine. There's no reason to make a big deal about this, even for the rivals of Kentucky. There are kids that are going to rival schools. It's not that big of a deal. All these kids, I think, will be fine to some extent. Some of them being great. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. Follow me on Twitter at LanceDawe_, and follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, you can leave those in the YouTube comments below. You can hit me on the socials. I will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Have a great rest of your day, everybody, and God bless.